This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/iHeart.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
No vibe? No vibe. Ooh. Can we just do it anyways? Watch ZZ Top. Got a whole lot of love. Got a whole lot of love. They're coming somewhere eventually soon.
Sounds like a heck of a concert.
It sounds like I have a concert. I might want to go to show up with some friends. I'm about to, I have a confession to make. Not to the golf god. I did that this morning. I told the golf god this morning that I'm sorry I was bragging about what a great putter of the golf ball I am when I'm really not as good as 50% of the players in the PGA Tour. There are moments I am. You know what I love saying when you play golf? I did it to baby brother Peter the other day. I hit an absolute, for me, a perfectly straight bomb drive up the middle. For me, a bomb's 240, okay? It's just what it is now at 66 years of age. And I told him, there's nobody on the PGA Tour that can hit it straighter than that. They can hit it longer, but perfectly straight is perfectly straight, right? Just because Scheffler hits a perfectly straight drive and I hit a perfectly straight doesn't mean, well, his was straighter. No. If they're both perfectly straight, they're both perfectly straight. If he hits it, if I'm 240, how long, what is Scotty? Is he 310 or whatever? I don't know, 320. I don't know what. It seems like everybody on tour hits at 300 yards nowadays. So they certainly can hit it longer, but perfectly straight is perfectly straight. So you can say the same thing, Brett Blakemore. If you hit it perfectly straight, you just say, that's just as straight as anybody in the PGA Tour can hit a golf ball.
It's happening more often these days.
And so my other confession is I really don't have controversial Vikings. You were waiting for it, weren't you?
I was like, what did I miss?
Yeah, you thought I had it because I teased it. I said, look, found some other side of the break. Have some controversial Vikings news. Though I love CBS Sports. I think they have more meaningless sports stories and list stories than any sports aggregate or whatever you call them, sports website, sports story collecting news organization. Because they do this one, these are the clickbait ones, Mm-hmm. The most pressing question for each team in the National Football League after the draft. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
I know you're a Packer fan, but you follow the Vikings because you live in this town and you need to, or else it's not much use having you on the air to help out. Don't know about the Vikings, but I can sure tell you about the Packers. What would you say, in your mind's eye, is the most pressing question facing the Vikings after the draft?
I think anytime you've got a new quarterback, that should take first and foremost should be JJ and the new number 8, Sam Howell.
Brilliant!
Did you write? Are you moonlighting with CBS Sports? Did you write this? Because here's what the dude
It's a word
says.
for word?
Well, pretty close. He doesn't bring up the Howell thing, but he goes, what does J.J. McCarthy have in him? Well, guts and brains, and he's probably got a liver and probably got a scrotum, whether it's elevated or not, I don't know. But the second-year quarterback should have one of the NFL's most favorable setups, inheriting a restocked line, an electric pass-catching core, electric. Still, he's 22 with zero actual NFL experience. And Vikings fans watched Sammy Darnold win 14 games a year ago. The bar is actually quite high for such a young leader. But that's a good bar to have. I mean, I would rather have, if I'm the player, wouldn't you rather have high expectations?
Yeah, of course. They're saying, no, show up.
Yeah. Well, that was if you'll remember last year, that was going into the draft. That's all everybody said, the best landing spot for any rookie quarterback, and they probably didn't say it in the tone of voice I'm doing, but I'm just doing it like this anyways, would be the Minnesota Vikings because they got quarterback whisperer guy. He's a great offensive mind. And at the time, we loved our bookend tackles, and I didn't think especially outside the Twin Cities metro or Vikingville, I think the national media didn't realize how mediocre or inferior the middle of our offensive line was. But they looked at the bookend tackles, and they both are really, really good. Darisaw and O'Neal. J.J. Jefferson, considered the best wide receiver in pro football by most people, and you could argue one or two other guys. And then who's our other guy? Addison. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of talent. A lot of people like him.
A lot of speed.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it. He's got speed. Then Hawkinson and such like that. And then we added the running back. And then Darnold flourished once, and that was supposed to be for McCarthy, which is why all that time last year I said, well, why couldn't the same thing be said for Sam Darnold? And lo and behold, it was. Darnold got in a different situation, finally had stuff to work with. Spent a year in San Francisco and watched it from training camp to the big game, watched how it works in the real world, valet parking. He got to see what it really looked like, right? And then he gets under the tutelage of quarterback whisperer, and lo and behold, we saw what happened. And McCarthy, they had a news conference with a handful of the players last week. We carried two of them on this radio show. It was O'Neal was first up. Then after O'Neal, it was J.J. McCarthy. And I think we carried the whole thing. If not, it was pretty darn close. And everybody seemed to be duly impressed, mightily impressed by how the young man replied to the bevy of questions from the hard-hitting Twin Cities media. I'll tell you what, the New York City media has nothing on the Twin Cities. So, it took all the questions and seemed to answer them in a way that, the text messages and a lot of the social media stuff is a guy that I'd like to be leading me. He sounds like a leader, Yeah. Most people that played high school football and college football and were quarterbacks were leaders of the team. They all are. They have leadership qualities and abilities. Some may be stronger than others. Some are more vocal than others. Some are very quiet in their leadership skills. I think most people look for rah-rah guys. They look for the guy that does the, in the pregame circle just before they run out into the field. They're doing the old, who dat going to beat them Saints? Who dat? Drew Brees just, basically screaming at the top of his lungs to get the team fired up. Does that kind of, to me, it's all right to do that, but that doesn't mean, what a leader. I think it's more behind the scenes, the kind of things they do. Being calm, cool, and collected is obviously very important. You don't want somebody that gets panicked during trying conditions, game on the line, make mistakes. But yeah, so but I'll give him that. He passed that test. And so that would be the biggest question facing the club. Other than, I would think, the health of the two guys coming, the two defensive guys that we have in the middle, both have coming off fairly significant injuries where they missed. I think both missed, maybe not the whole season, but significant parts of last season. They didn't play. Now, when they were healthy and did play, they were very good at what they did. So we'll see if they're able to do that. But yeah, it seems like just smooth sailing ahead for the Minnesota Vikings when that is your most pressing question. When you look at the rest of the Central, for Green Bay, you're a Packers fan. Tell me if you agree with this.
Okay.
Their most pressing question, what's next for Jair Alexander? It says the Packers went all in on refining Jordan Love's weaponry, adding not one but two young wideouts in Matt Golden and is it Savion Williams? If that unit stays healthy, they should go far. Still, Alexander is the elephant in the room on D after both sides basically anticipated a split. Nate Hobbs' addition should at least help the slot. In talking with Badger Bob, and I'm not paying as close attention to Packer football as I once did, and I think you do.
I always love that.
Did Alexander no, I'm not ready to play. No, I'm just not ready to play. Was it that kind of a thing? Did he have an injury and he just couldn't play, or what was his issue with Green Bay?
He was questionable, I think, for like a month.
Yeah.
Where thought it was going to be the return, and then, well, he's just not ready, and they kept having different excuses or reasons for it, where it was, well, we need him to hit certain benchmarks before or he didn't look good enough in practice to be out there, whatever it may be. I think from the tea leaves that I've read is that it's possible that that's the most likely outcome is that he'll still come back to Green Bay, but they're still working with him. Personally, I think he's good enough to put up with all the nonsense and all this.
Is he a prima donna kind of a kid? Is that his problem?
He's got a little bit of that to him. Yeah. Maybe a lot of bit of that to him, but he's really good when he's on and he's healthy and motivated. He's really, really good. So,
we had anticipated decades. All right, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah,
but probably a decade of him going up against JJ twice a year, right?
Yeah,
and. Yeah.
He missed both of them last year.
Yeah, and Alexander's the kind of guy, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm missing the quotes, but, he's one of those guys, and you like guys that are confident in what they do. He seems like he would actually look forward to those matchups with he's JJ. I can't think of his name.
Jets.
With Jets, and Jets looks forward to it as well, right?
Yeah, I remember 2 years ago when the last time they did match up, he was mad at our then defensive coordinator, Joe Barry, because he wouldn't let him follow Jets around. He wanted to just be on him no matter where he was on the field. Joe Barry said no, and funny enough, the Packers got diced up. So there's that.
The voice you use to imitate a stupid Rube sports talk person sounds eerily like meat sauce. Do you think that's by circumstance or design? Detroit Lions. What's the one pressing question the Lions have? I can tell you. The one, because I followed the team pretty closely.
Yeah.
The most pressing question facing the Detroit Lions, number one question since the draft is, will they be wearing road whites or Honolulu blue at the big game? The year of the cat. I used to think you were forced to take a certain uniform. I thought, like, for instance, did Philly wear their green last year?
Oh,
they did, right?
I want to say they did.
I think Kansas City were in the whites. So then I thought that immediately meant, well, then the AFC team would be designated the home team, and they would wear their home uniforms. But I think it's the choice of who's ever considered the home team. Like this year, I think AFC will be, and let's say for argument's sake, it's Kansas City again. They get to choose if they want red or white. I think Detroit takes the Honolulu blue if they get this choice. You have to, right? Though I think the best road uniform in football is the Lions white. Road whites. We'll get to the most pressing questions for the Kitties and for the Bears on the other side of the break as the Common Man program rolls on from 1600 Utica Avenue South right here on the Fan.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/iHeart.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Past Common Man program. There is controversy of Vikings news. I finally discovered it. I sifted through the rubble that is 1600 Utica Avenue South, or actually that is my show prep. Just sifted through what was left of it. And Ben Leber, who is a former National Football League player, has... do you think his media career has been more successful than his playing career?
On Twin Cities Live, Viking sideline reporter. He's doing all right for himself.
You mentioned the crown jewel being a contributor to the Power Trip Morning Show. Who wouldn't want a job like that? I've begged the Power Trip for years to have me on, they say.
Really?
They go, you don't got what it takes, kid. And you know why? Because they said, I got through 10th grade. They're reliving 8th grade. So, Power Trip Morning Show. Plus, he does national stuff too, right?
Yeah.
What do you think's more successful? His playing career or his media career? You don't want to say, do you? Because you think it's his media career, but then you can be mad. He was a hell of a football player. I mean, he ain't going to the Ring of Honor. Trust me. And he ain't going to the Hall of Fame. But he played in the league, man.
He did.
He played, you know what the kids call it? The show.
Yeah.
He played in the show. So you say he's got some controversial tweets?
So 22 minutes ago, Ben Leber said rumors. It's important to mention that. It says rumors.
Rumor has it. Rumor has it.
Vikings play Steelers in Dublin, and he says yay. And then under that it says Vikings play next game in London, and he added his commentary nay. So rumors would be
back-to-back games?
Back-to-back games in Europe. Rumor.
Well, A, I don't think that's ever been done in the history of the National Football League. B, I hope they just stay overseas and don't. You talk about jet lag. You talk about circadian rhythms. Talk about altitude change. That's bad craziness. So if let's say that ends up being true, comes to fruition, you have to stay there, right?
You would think. And you know who's going to be really pissed about that is whoever the Vikings play in London. Because if they don't have they're going to be the ones adjusting. Vikings have been there for a week and change. So
back-to-back games, Dublin and London. I've not been to Dublin or London.
You know who's going to be there?
Closed circuit to the Vikings radio network executives. I'd really like a chance to work with the Vikings again on the broadcast, on the Vikings radio network. And I'm willing to travel overseas. I'm willing to go. I wonder when those games will be. Those games are usually early in the year. Or do they play them late too? It seems like to me they're always early in the season.
I want to say that the Steelers Dublin game is like week 4, but I think their schedule release is
in other words,
9 days from now.
So in other words, the weather will be nice. There's a lot of really good golf courses in the Ireland area. I mean, think about it. You're willing, right? 2 weeks, you'll go overseas, right?
Kidding me? See a little football, yeah.
Play Old Head on Monday. Play Royal Portsmouth on Tuesday. Play somewhere, I don't know any other Irish courses. Play somewhere on Wednesday, Thursday, do the show. Then go to the game. I don't know. 3 hours, play football game. Then leave and then go over to London. All sorts of great golf courses over there, too. I'm all in. I'd really like to play with to be back on the Vikings Radio Network. So we'll see if that happens. I find that hard to believe, though. I got to. You know what they could do? Let's say it's Vikings, Steelers in Dublin, and let's say we used the Bills as an example before.
Okay.
Let's go with Bills, Patriots. Well, what if the following week in London it's Vikings, Bills, and Patriots, Steelers? So the teams are already there. I bet that's how they would do that. Only seems to make sense to me. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we appreciate Ben Leber in his digging in his relentless pursuit of the truth, the whole truth, or some semblance of the truth. Jimmy Butler, Golden State won last night, decisive Game 7 in Houston. After having a 3-1 lead, they lost back-to-back games. It went to 3, and 3 games apiece. I don't remember exactly at what time Houston had the lead, how it went as hard, but Houston had the lead for a while. They played well, and then Golden State went on a run, and Houston would chip away at it. They would carve it back down into single digits and then some, but Golden State did enough to stave off elimination and move on. So they asked Jimmy Butler, they cornered him last night after the game, and wanted to get his feelings on the matchup with Minnesota. Here's the quote from Jimmy. Honestly, I got until like midnight to enjoy this win, and so that's what I'm going to do. Then I'll focus on Minnesota after midnight. I'm wondering about how I'm going to get my coffee machine to Minnesota and how I'm going to get my kids there. Because he's like a coffee connoisseur, I think I've gathered. So he's not even concerned. He's dismissing us and taking us lightly is what he's doing. Look, my biggest concern right now, how do I get my coffee maker to Minnesota, and how do I get my kids here? I mean, I'll worry about Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert and Nas and Conley and Julius Randle and Devin. What do we want to go with the pronunciation this week? Do we want to go with, because Mark Rosen uses both DiVincenzo and DiVincenzo. He uses them both. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, he says, depends on what mood he's in. Also, he uses either Doncic or Doncic. It just depends what mood he's in. So for this week, do we want to go with, because we can change day to day, week to week. Do we want it DiVincenzo or DiVincenzo?
I'm a Cenzo guy.
Okay, well, we'll go with DiVincenzo, which is the way he pronounces his name. Yeah. So generally, when someone pronounces their way, for the longest, for the longest time, I couldn't get your name straight. I thought you were Brett. I thought you were Blake Brettmore. Remember that?
I remember.
I would say Blake Brettmore because I just couldn't. It's not dyslexia. It's just I would get it confused, and it took me the longest time. Sometimes I still have to give it a second. And it's not you. It's not that you're not memorable. You're very memorable. But just Blake.
I get it.
Either name's good. What? There's nothing wrong with if your name was Blake Brettmore, there'd be nothing wrong with that, right?
It'd be interesting, but yeah.
But you're Brett Blakemore, not Blake Brettmore. Much like he is Roberto DiVincenzo, not Roberto. No, it's not Roberto. I keep doing the golfer.
I always love that one.
Dante
DiVincenzo and Dante DiVincenzo. I was going to say something about Jimmy Buckets. He's
doubting him.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Thanks for rescuing me there, man. I had another. We call it senior moments. I now know what senior moments are. Trust me. More controversial Vikings news. Other side of the break. A couple of odds and ends I want to type, including some more Timberwolves conversation that I think you'll find quite interesting. We'll do that next here on the Common Man program on the Fan.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Program here today on the Common Man, Dan Cole, Brett Blakemore. You've done a terrific job. Really have.
Thank you.
Your contributions to the radio station, they've not gone unnoticed by me. I want you to know that. Johnny on the spot, always willing to take on more and more work. There have been days you work 12, 14, 16 hours a day. You're over on the Crackpot Conservative Station in the morning, back over here for a midday slot, go hit a bucket of balls, come back and do the evenings. I mean, you, and what's interesting is I've gotten unprecedented response to your contributions today on the Brad John Brian KFAN text line is 64686. And let me guess, nothing from the coroner's office, is there? They don't say a thing. Just kind of expect you to kind of just keep doing what you're doing. A lot of people would like to be working at the Fan. You should just be happy you got a job. That how it works? Sort of sad, really. But I like what you've been doing here. I really like.
Thank you.
I like the other thing that what's most important is to me.
What's that?
Is that at a moment's notice you'll drop everything to join me for an afternoon round of golf.
Yes. I got to work on speeding up the driver setup, though.
Yeah.
I got to go to the range and figure that out.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. It's a Warrior taught me, man. I don't know what to tell you.
So you do it the way you want. I just know I'm giving you a hard time.
I know.
Oh. 10 of who? That's what somebody just sent?
Oh my gosh.
10 of who?
Average at that.
Wow.
Jeez.
You remember, it wasn't that long ago that I think 10 ESPN basketball experts, 10, picked the Los Angeles Lakers to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in the NBA playoffs. 10 out of 10. Apparently, they've learned their lesson. Have you seen this? 10 of 11 experts from ESPN are picking the Wolves to beat the Golden State Warriors.
We're coming. We're coming.
Now, I bet each and every one of those people could use this and say, well, we just thought the Lakers matchup wasn't as good for the Wolves. We really liked this matchup for them. Now, I think it was because they doubted the Wolves. And it wasn't hard to. I get it. They were, I was a doubter all year long. I pushed this team hard. I only hold the local teams to the same expectations I expect of myself, right? And they finally started to put it together once Julius got back. According to what I've been reading, I think Chip Scoggins, who I text and talk with more than most people know, was in studio with me on Friday, and we do appreciate his contributions. He was careful not to do the Tommy Olson saying the best thing ever to happen to, who was the running back again for the Gophers?
It was Muhammad Ibrahim.
Yeah, but the best thing that happened to him was had his he had some part of his body torn to shreds. He missed our entire season. He said that was the best thing that ever happened. And Chip said it's never good to have an injury, but Randall was able to sit out, observe, because remember, he just wasn't fitting in. He was like, have you ever seen the cartoon Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Of course.
1964 was the first time. He was just a misfit. He had a red nose that glowed, right? He just didn't fit in with, Donner and Blitzen and Comet and Cupid, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But did you know the most famous reindeer of all, right? And Randall didn't fit in. If you'll remember when he came, it was like, I just love when they say, the ball gets sticky with Julius Randle. There's other players, too, they say really what they're just saying, they're trying to be kind and saying the guy's a ball hog, right? He wants to shoot. Wants to play hero ball. And it was sort of that way. Do you remember, how did that go? Was Gobert demanding the ball, and then Julius didn't get it to him, and then Gobert fired it back at? There was a problem with Julius and Gobert during earlier in the season. It was just really ugly. It was this thing where, and if you remember early in the year, I remember the quotes from Anthony Edwards or something to the effect of, yeah, we just don't really talk to each other much. And you're thinking, wow, so much for chemistry. And so why wouldn't somebody doubt the club? And they gave you many reasons to doubt. So Randall watches from afar, and apparently the thinking is, I don't think anybody denies this at Winter Park, at 600 First Avenue, is then he kind of saw, how the team was put together, what he needed to do. And now he's become more of he distributes a little bit. He's found his place, and him and Ann are working well together, and everything's all ducky and bunny. And since Randall's gotten back, I don't remember that exact record, but it's something like 25-5, or it was going into the playoffs. It was just this remarkable record. And they were quietly doing it while I think the rest of the national media was busy watching all the other playoff races and all the other stories of the bigger name guys, right? I mean, we have the biggest name we have is Anthony Edwards. I think, Gobert too, and other names. And, people that follow basketball know the other players on the Wolves team, but it's not like, Steph and Jimmy and LeBron and Doncic. It's not those kinds of names. So everybody was all focused on those players, right? And so I can understand why there was some doubt there. And again, I will say this, and I know I get pushed back on this too, because people think I'm just doing a wet blanket Wednesday on a manic Monday, but the Wolves' schedule post All-Star game was, I think, the third least difficult in all of the NBA. Now, you hear me say this all the time. They don't put the schedule together. They don't put the roster of those teams together, so it's not their fault. But they took care of the business they needed to, even though it got a little dicey They lost a couple of games they should have won against. One of them was Utah, was the other one against, was it the Pacers or the Cavs when all 5 of their guys, it was a skip game, it was a rest game, and they didn't play, and we lost to them. But this time around, 10 of 11 ESPN experts are picking the Minnesota Timberwolves. However, on TNT, 2/3 of their NBA on TNT crew still aren't buying in. Kenny the Jet Smith thinks a big factor will be Anthony Edwards guarding Jimmy Butler, which means someone else would have to be glued to Steph Curry for the entire series. I'm reading from a SI story, Bring Me the News. I think this is Tiny Joe Nelson. Smith says, I don't think he has the luxury to say, I'm going to try and put the fire out on Steph. He's probably going to have to guard Jimmy Butler. And then there's a cross matchup with Jade McDaniels and or Mike Conley, which will not guard Jimmy Butler. I think the Warriors actually have a matchup advantage in this series offensively, and they're going to be harder to guard than Minnesota for some reason. However, Chuck Barkley picked the Wolves over the Warriors. Chuck says, I'm going to take Minnesota. I think Minnesota, I wish I could do Chuck's voice. I can hear it in my head, but I can't do a Barkley imitation. I'll try it again. I think I'm going to take Minnesota. I think Minnesota's playing really, really well right now. Ant's a hell of a player. His confidence is sky high. Minnesota's going to have to go small a lot if they're going to beat this team. And then Shaq agreed with Barkley that Rudy Gobert could be played off the floor since the Warriors will go with a small ball lineup. The tallest starter for Golden State in Game 7. In the Game 7 win over Houston was Butler at 6'7". O'Neal is also concerned about Minnesota's ability to defend Curry. He says, I'm wondering what tactics Minnesota is going to do defensively to try to stop Steph. Of course, it was Barkley be going, I'm wondering what the tactics Minnesota is going to do defensively to try to stop Steph.
I always love that.
They only got 2 guys that can really play like that. And he said DiVincenzo. So I think this week he's decided to go with DiVincenzo rather than DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo and the other young fella that can deny, they really don't have a lot of bodies, and you don't want your guys getting tired chasing around Steph. I'm going with Golden State.
Oh my gosh.
I won't have and I know everybody's waiting to hear from me because, they know how closely I follow the NBA. I'm glued to the TV and watch all these games. I won't have my official prediction until I get a chance to try to get Rosie going tomorrow. Because remember, he picked the Lakers. By the way, he owes me $6, according to Power Trip. I forgot we made the bet. Power Trip Bets reported that I said Golden State would go deeper into the playoffs than the Lakers, and Rosen took me up on that at $6.
Can I ask you for one prediction?
Sure.
Will you get that $6 tomorrow?
Hold on. Yes, because if it was 60, I'm not so sure, but $6, because Rosen dismisses these small bets. Oh, they're not even worth anything. But see, the bookies like guys like Mark Rosen. Bet with your heart, don't bet with your head. Bet more than you really can afford. Come on, go ahead, do it. That's what he wants to see me do, and I'm not going to do it. I won't get lured into that trap. But I thought the Wolves would beat the Lakers. And remember, the players can't look ahead, or at least they shouldn't look ahead, right? But fans and media can. And as you sort of saw the way the Wolves series was shaping up, that they were going to run the Lakers off the floor and win in a gentleman's sweep. And it looked like Golden State was on their way to a 4-1 victory as well. They were up 3-1. You can start to look ahead. And I was liking Golden State a lot because I idolize and pedestalize Jimmy Butler, and Steph. How can you not like what Steph does? And then I Draymond Green can be a Richard. I think that might be an understatement, but he brings that toughness, that grittiness, and that defensive tenacity that I think is really important, not only just in your regular season NBA games, but particularly in postseason play. But, man, I was mightily impressed by the Wolves and what they were able to. They just dismantled the Lakers. I mean, that was just, I did not expect. I mean, I thought it was Minnesota in 7. I did not think that the Lakers would go quietly into the night. But I don't know. I'm going to have to take a deeper dive tonight. I'll talk to some people that I trust, NBA people. I'll read some things, and I will come back tomorrow with a how did PA used to say that, with a forthright and I'll come with a forthright and educated opinion. Tomorrow I will do that. Says even the TNT guys don't know ball. Wolves can throw at least 4 different guys at Steph. Jaden, Dante, Nah, or even Jalen Clark. They don't watch Wolves games unless we're on their station that night. You can try to throw 4 different guys at Steph, but you can throw anybody you want at Steph. Throwing any guy at Steph, teams have been trying that for years. Just because you have a lot of bodies and guys that are fairly adept at defense doesn't mean they can stop the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the game, right? So let's not just think. And I get it. And look, it's from Hendo in Minneapolis, and Hendo is a regular listener. And he's a regular text messenger, and he knows ball, I can tell. But if you were talking about just an ordinary player, slightly above average, I would say, yeah, we got all sorts of options for guarding Steph. But when you're talking about Steph Curry, I'm sorry, and it's possible that we will send waves of defenders, keeping guys fresh, right? Football teams love doing it when they can, right? We were quoting, there was a defensive lineman that got signed by the Niners. And they were signing other edge rushers. And there was some concern about, well, is he going to be annoyed because he doesn't get his plays? And he's like, I love it. I love that we can just throw guy after guy after guy. So yeah, if those guys can do a competent, if they can do a competent job, against Steph, you could probably slow him down some. I mean, it's the old, you pick your poison. It's like, we talked about this early in the show, where a lot of teams will take a look at Anthony Edwards and say, we're just not going to let him beat him. You know what? We're going to let him. He can do whatever he wants. We'll let anybody else beat us. But we ain't going to let Anthony Edwards beat us, and maybe that's the way Minnesota will approach it with Steph Curry. We had talked earlier about, there's been all this conversation about that Anthony Edwards, the giant slayer, right? That he beat, Durantula and company last year. Then they beat Joker and company last year. And then, of course, by the way, just a reminder to those people, last year he didn't beat Doncic, but this year he did. This year they got Doncic and LeBron. I wanted to, again, I'm here. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I'm just trying to give both sides of the story. There's more than just Ant on the club, right? I mean, if Gobert's not on the team in the deciding game, we would have been playing a game 6, but we didn't have to because Gobert was brilliant. So other players oftentimes are the real reason a team wins. But we're talking about the best three-point shooter in the history of the game, Steph Curry, and the guy that I think has got to a level of three-pointers that was quicker than any other player in the league, and that was Anthony Edwards. And then Randy from Richmond, Virginia, originally from St. Cloud, sent this when we were making that discussion. This came in just before 1 o'clock, and I saved it for this moment. It says, artificial intelligence says the 3 players who made the most three-pointers in the NBA this season, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, and Malik Beasley. Here's a more detailed look. Steph Curry leads the league with 357 three-pointers made this season. He also has a 44.8% field goal percentage. Anthony Edwards made a total of 320 three-pointers this season. That's only 37 less than Steph. He also has a 44.7% field goal percentage. So 44.8 to 44.7. Then you have Beasley's numbers, 283, 43%. So Curry and Edwards being the top 2 3-point shooters in the league will be interesting. I think that's just another layer to the story, another piece to the puzzle that I think is interesting. All of them that we've laid out here. You have Finch, who's becoming, I think a lot of people are now starting to recognize him as one of the better coaches in the NBA. And, we've discussed forever, is it coaches that make players or players that make coaches? But I think Finch does a nice job with the guys. Then you have Jimmy Buckets was here before. You have the Draymond Gobert back and forth over social media over the years, chiding each other. And then you have the, Steph Curry, who will be, he'll pass the baton to Anthony Edwards as the best three-point shooter in the league once Steph steps away, and I don't know how many more years Steph's got in him. We started the show with the Fleury news conference today, and the question I liked the best was late in the part we heard, and that was when the reporter said, are you really ready to leave? Do you feel like, or is it just not there anymore, was kind of the question. And that's what he said. He said, I think there's a desire to continue to play. He loved every minute of it. But it got to the point where he said, he basically said in no uncertain terms, these aren't exact words, but he said, I'm just not able to do the things I used to do that made me good, right? That he wasn't. And that'll happen, at that position. I don't like to talk about myself, and I don't like to use myself as an example or a comparison or an analogy. But when I played boot hockey, same thing. Left the rink at the end of the season. We'll see you guys next year. I was at the top of my game. The next year, I was just frozen. As frozen as the water beneath me. I couldn't make a stop anymore. Now, Fleury didn't get to that point, but he admitted he's just not the goaltender he was. He's not doing all the little things he did. Plus, he said the recovery time was getting to be too much on as old as he was on his body. That'll happen to Steph eventually. Doesn't look like he's ready to slow down anytime soon. But, it's got all the makings of what should be. Now, again, I always like to say, it's going to be a great series. No, we don't know that. It looks like it will be. It has all the markings. We also thought Lakers-Wolves would be a great series, and look what happened there. That's great for the Wolves standpoint, but as far as we're going to Game 7, the best 2 words in sports, it never happened here. So there you go. Boy, you did a great job, and I miss you.
Yeah, great job today. Yeah, I know.
You too.
I know.
But I'll talk to you again Saturday. We'll be live from Cragen's for Tee to Green. We'll be on property at Cragen's is where we'll be. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 12 noon. Tennessee back in as producer. Tennessee, Mark Rosen at 2 o'clock. But stick around. Big Ticket, JG, they're next right here in the Fan.
Good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
Some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.